It literally almost picks the front wheels off the ground.
If you want to know how to get the motor off and get the transaxle down, watch this playlist. So this is the first time I've ever taken a golf cart motor apart, and there are two screws on the very end of this cap, and what these do, they actually clamp the one end bearing into that housing. So if you don't remove these two screws, you're not getting this motor apart. It's just that simple. The information was readily available online, but you know me, I gotta be stubborn. Once you get the 4 bolts out and the 2 little screws on the end, just keep moving the little cap back and forth, and the bearing will just slip right out of it. I'm not really sure if all that grease was from that bearing or somebody assembled that way. If you guys know, leave me a comment. It was a sealed bearing, so there shouldn't have been grease there. So this is definitely one of the problems. There was some slop in this bearing, but make sure you watch all the way through, and I'll show the other place where we're definitely making some noise. As you can see in the background, you can see the transaxle taken apart. If you want to see that video, I'm going to leave the playlist at the end of this video, so you can click on it and watch the whole thing. So do me a favor here and look at which directions the brushes are aimed. Spoiler alert, they are faced to the inside. Just keep watching the video and see what I do just a little bit later on as we're rebuilding this. I also apologize for the camera work. Tanya was not there, so that meant that I was trying to do this and run the camera, which obviously I'm not good at. There's a pretty deep groove on this commuter where the brushes are rubbed against it, and these brushes look fairly new, so it's obvious to me that the brushes have been changed at some point in time. However, once we look at this commuter, you can see there's a lip at the very front, and the brushes are rubbing against it on the sides, and it's giving you that little tick, 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 tick noise. So I'll show you what I did to fix that later on. Here's a better look at it, and you can see there's a pretty nice little ridge all the way around the outside. Plus that, it's just absolutely rough. In a perfect world, I would mount this into a metal lathe and resurface this. I was actually able to order the brush kit and bearing off of Amazon in one little kit. It all come in a couple of days. So we're going to pop this bearing off and then replace it with a new one. But before we put the bearing back on, we'll go ahead and work on that commuter. If you don't have this puller, you can rent this at most of your local auto parts stores. I rented this from AutoZone and then just ended up keeping it. Lord knows you can never have enough tools. That bearing is gnarly, and it feels like it's got gravel inside it. You figure it'd last more than 30 years. Oh, you notice too that Tanya's back running the camera, and you guys can actually see something.
Good. You see it? Mm-hmm. You got to look for here. This horse has got so much wear. There's a lot of wear over the years.
So how I'm fixing this is I just took a straight file and I just started working around real slow, little cuts over and over. And I expect I will have several keyboard ninjas correct me that this is not the right way. Again, like I said earlier on in the video, if I had a perfect world, I would mount this up into a metal lathe and just take off little thousandths of an inch cut just till I got it smooth. There's a lot of life still left in this motor though. You guys do me a favor and leave a whole bunch of comments for my wife to read saying that I need a bigger metal lathe. I think I can win her over with you guys' help. Come to think of it, in a couple of weeks, she has her birthday. I mean, I'm pretty sure she wants a metal lathe for her birthday. So what I'm doing here is taking this little screwdriver and just going through, make sure there's no metal that is touching one part of the commuter to the other. And I didn't show it on the video, but what I did do is come back with a vacuum cleaner and I vacuumed out all of that to make sure that no little particles were in between. That would make the motor less efficient. The local shop gremlin has stole my brass brush, so all I had is this carbon steel brush, which I used, and then this is one of the reasons I went out of my way to clean this up with a vacuum. because you don't want to leave any kind of carbon metal. This causes sparks and damage and welding with inside the motor, and that's bad. So this is the parts kit that I ordered from Amazon. I will leave a link in the description for this if you have one of the GE motors. This is actually a kit for a much newer motor, but it has all the parts you need to rebuild your older GE motor. I looked at buying the individual parts for just the exact motor that I have. Turns out by ordering the kit, I was able to get it quite a bit cheaper. Who knows? I may one day have a newer golf cart. You just don't know. Lord knows I do need to store some more parts in my shop because I just don't have enough. I really encourage you to use your phone to take a lot of pictures to make sure you know where every wire goes and exactly where it goes. Obviously we had it with the camera, but I had to go back and look it up on the video later because I put this in backwards. This new brush holder was also reversed for a different type motor. It was supposed to face out, and the older style faced in, which really confused me. Had I just put the new brushes in the new brush holder and turned it with the brushes out, it would have absolutely worked fine. But I just couldn't get my head wrapped around that one would be on the inside and one would be on the outside. So I took the brushes and put them back into the old brush holder. From the time that I originally took this apart, it was about 2 weeks it took me to get the parts in just because I messed around and didn't order them on time. But I had forgot how a lot of things had went. This did come back to bite me. You can see here as I'm setting them side by side, one is rotating, meant to rotate left, one is meant to rotate right. That's why the newer one has to be aimed out and the older one is aimed in. So you can see here that the old brushes and the new brushes that I'm now putting on, they are the same brushes. You've got to make sure that you put them in the right direction. And it took me a little bit to figure it out, but I got them in there. It's not like I do this every day. So you can look here, I've got them in and they're in the right places, and I still managed to screw it up. Now be very careful here when you're taking these nuts off. You don't want to twist the actual stud itself. You want to take the nut loose. So hold on the inside and unscrew the nut. That's very important because you can twist the wire off and damage your motor to the point that it's not worth repairing. So the next part of this is self-explanatory. I'm just going to kind of sit back and let the video talk for itself. I just really want to push this point home. Make sure you're holding that stud on the inside. Do not let that stud twist because you will break that wire, and then your only option would be like to solder it back or just throw the motor away and start over. Repeat the same step on the other side and we'll move on. All right, notice the mistake. Here it comes. My brushes are aimed outside, but I'm using the older style brush holder And you know what? I go all in too. So right here is a point where I started singing that song, One of These Things Don't Look Like the Other. And just a few minutes later, the aha moment happened and I realized I had this thing turned around backwards. Looking back at this, there's absolutely an easier way to do this. I put screws in, mounted, I did everything I knew to do to get this thing lined up, and I finally got it all back together. Got the with a like a little screwdriver. I had to line up the little holes for the bearing cap cover. The bearing, it holds the bearing to it. It kind of clamps the bearing down. It took me forever to do this. So I got it back together and it works, and it works well. However, my only regret is not showing you how to do it correctly. I see now, just by looking back, you know, again, hindsight being 2020, I see that it could have been done so much easier and so much more professional. But again, I don't do this every day. Just to remind you, if you want to see the transaxle rebuilt, I will put a link to that video and the entire playlist for this golf cart at the end of this video. And you can see here where we're actually starting to put the motor back to the transaxle. So I'll show you this, and then on the next video we'll show you putting the transaxle and motor together back into the golf cart. Just remember to put the 3 bolts on the front side of the transaxle, and then there's one larger bolt that goes on the back. I see where people have probably forgot that in the past. And you guys stay tuned and we'll show you putting this transaxle back in the golf cart, adding upgraded heavy duty rear leaf springs and a few other things like suspension parts. We're going to show you we are rebuilding the back end of this golf cart. End goal is to make this thing last another 30 years. Hope you guys know how much I appreciate your comments and also your insight. Lord knows I don't know everything. Listen, I appreciate you watching our channel. God bless. Have a great day.